Hello everyone, it's time for a review of Towerborne, slash overview I guess. I bought this on a whim. I had heard about the game before, but I wasn't really following it, and it just kind of randomly dropped on Steam a couple days ago. Now the first thing I should say is that this is a $25 buy-in early access via a Founders Pack, and it's going to be free to play at launch. So it's not the standard early access, where you pay to get it early, and you help them with the feedback, and then it eventually becomes a paid product at a higher price for people who weren't early adopters. This is going to be completely free. So obviously right now there's a metric ass ton of games to play at the moment, so I don't know if you really want to buy this right now. I mean, we've got FF16 is in a couple days on PC. There's Space Marine 2 just dropped. There's so many games to play. So I will say, for early access, this game has a lot of content. So I definitely think that they have a good foundation. There's a lot of things that are wrong with like the itemization, the gear, and the combat, but the fact that they have so much content and a good foundation, I think, really makes me relatively, what's the word for it? I can't think right now. Sorry. I think there's a pretty good chance that this will be a good game, basically. So, we're gonna go ahead and go in here. Let's show a little bit of the combat. Alright, so in this game you have two attack buttons. Pretty standard stuff for an action game, but for a beat-em-up, not so much. So like mainly games like Sengoku 3 have two attack buttons. So you can combine them in various ways. We also have a class action, which is unique compared to every character. So for this class, which is basically the thief class, you have a teleport. It also resets your combo and allows you to continue the combo. You're also invincible during this until the end of the animation, so you can use it to fight hyper-armored enemies. Let's go ahead and try it on this guy. Like that. So you also have focus moves or skills. I always call things moves instead of skills because I'm old. But basically, these are done with L2 and square or triangle, or LT, X, and Y, whichever one you're using. Now these vary depending on what weapon you're using. So if you played stuff like Wo Long recently, that game came out last year. It's very similar. Weapons will have certain focus abilities on them, and you can't change them, but they seem to be relatively set depending on what the name of the weapon is and where it drops. Like for instance, this one has this teleport slash that's really busted because it's invincible, and if you use it on something that staggers like these guys, it launches. And the second move is this big, flurry, Ranbu super kind of thing. Really great for bosses. Not so much for regular enemies, because you're not invincible when you do moves in this game. Now the game is relatively responsive. You notice here, you can hear me pushing the buttons. Some moves you can cancel out of, and then some moves you can't. Like, this class feels the best out of all of them currently because it has a lot less animation lock, but some of the other characters are like really slow. And there's animation lock, and I think the thing that makes that not work is mostly just because there are a lot of hyper-armored enemies in this game. Every boss is hyper-armored, but arguably the armored basic enemies like this guy can be more threatening because there's lots more of them on the screen and you can't really interrupt them. So hopefully animation lock will get looked at eventually in some point in the future. They also have these things, which are umbras. They're basically summons. Like this one just makes like a big little persistent hitbox. It's useful for juggling crowd control, but the main reason to use it is to break the armor bar on bosses. And if you time it right, you can pretty much burst a boss and put them in stun. That's basically how bosses work in this game. Obviously, it's designed to be a free-to-play MMO with optional co-op, so they kind of have to design it around, like, we don't want you to stagger stuff to death. Now, I do think there's some problems with that, like I said. Getting stuck around hyper-armored enemies and not really having any way to interrupt them, and then a lot of your options are not invincible. So I definitely think the solo play needs to be balanced a little bit. It's been one of the biggest complaints about this game, is that the solo play is kind of unfair at times. Once you start to get a build going like what I have here, which I'll show as I exit shortly, the game is more than manageable. The gear isn't particularly OP from what I've seen, but before you get a good build, the game is very difficult, and definitely when you're playing solo, it feels like a lot of it's for the wrong reason. So hopefully they'll budge a little bit on solo play and make it a little bit easier. I think what's making it worse right now is the combination of the fact that there's not many people playing. As far as I know, they haven't paid anybody to play this. I've looked at the directory for this on Twitch, and there's been almost no one playing. And then, it's $25 buy-in for a free-to-play game, so a lot of people aren't going to be on board with that. Which is a shame, because I can tell that they've really put a lot of work into this, and it's definitely a lot better than other beat-em-ups I've played. I've played a lot of beat-em-ups post Streets of Rage 4, and they all just feel... Most of them feel worse than that game in some ways or every way. So I think they really did their homework, and they also, are launching in this, early access with like 20 hours of content. It's about 20 hours of content for one character. If you want to max out the others, it's more, but the thing is that they're going to be doing at least 2 wipes during early access. It means you're going to lose everything. So I'm not sure how many people are going to really want to max out multiple characters when the game is going to be better, it's going to have more content, and they're going to wipe. So I've done maybe about half the bosses in the game, and I'm probably not going to do too much more, especially because they've been getting a lot of feedback. They have not done a major patch yet. They did one for the matchmaking, but the matchmaking doesn't even work right now. So unless you have somebody to play this with, a partner, a family member, a friend or something, you're pretty much going to be playing solo, and I think that's why it's maybe getting some polarizing reviews. The thing about this game is beat-em-up fundamentals actually carry you a lot farther than the gear, even though the game doesn't have things like grabs. You cannot grab enemies and put them on the side of the screen, which is standard beat-em-up fundamentals. But outside of that, keeping yourself safe, using moves at the right time, controlling the enemies and putting them on one side, all that stuff is still there. But, it's with gear and a larger moveset, and I think a lot of people don't really understand how those fundamentals work. And I think it's a good thing that the gear is secondary to actually knowing how to play a beat-em-up, but playing solo is definitely harder than it should be, and I hope that they'll balance that out. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the gear now. Want to see more gameplay, you can go ahead and check out my stream VODs from the past week. I've been playing quite a bit. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at the gear. Okay, so gear in this game is pretty simple. It's actually simple to a fault, because it has the standard bad loot game design of just minuscule stat increases that don't really do much, and it's not very interesting to get loot by itself. What makes this game interesting is the aspects. Aspects are like slots on your gear. If you ever played stuff like, the Diablo games and things like that, more specifically Diablo 3 and 4, it's very similar here. Like as you see here, I have an aspect that gives me a proc chance for burn, and then on here I have a random affliction will be procced on enemies if I use 3 focus skills, which is the blue bar you see on the bottom of my character when I was in the training mode. Right here I have gain stability when using a focus move. Now that basically means that you have armor, so you can't get hit out of it. So that's actually pretty good. And then here I have when inflicting poison on an enemy, there is a 13% chance to inflict weakness. So a proc chance to inflict weakness, which I think makes them take more damage. This game over-tutorializes a lot, but doesn't really tell you what a lot of this stuff does. But the reason why this synergizes is because I have the Ratkin's Legacy, so this procs poison every time you do 5 attacks that actually make contact and don't get blocked. So every time I inflict poison, there's a chance that they will inflict weakness. And then on top of that, I also have 2 stacks of burn. And then when I can get a random affliction when I cast 3 supers. So that's a lot of status damage. Once I got this build, the game got a lot easier. However, you notice when you look at the gear, this stuff is just not very interesting. It's kind of, 5%, punching them in the balls damage, which is not very interesting. They've gotten a lot of complaints about that. Also, you have, no control over the loot whatsoever, so you cannot, target farm for the most part. Boss levels, which are not randomly generated, unlike the discovery tiles, they do have things that they will drop at a set rate, but it takes a couple times to get it, and then also the stats on them are still random. So making a build in this game is pretty much just choosing a set bonus and then hoping that you get some aspects that synergize. So you want to go for a set bonus first, and then look at your aspects and try to find things that synergize with your set bonus. And that's basically all there is right now. I definitely think that, maybe they're trying to make it so you can't just mash buttons and kill stuff, but honestly, when you get a good build, everything dies pretty quick anyway. So hopefully they'll budge on that and the builds will get a little bit more interesting. But yeah, compared to stuff like, similar games with beat 'em up character action style combat with loot, the builds definitely pale in comparison to stuff like Neo 2 and Stranger of Paradise. Alright, so in terms of monetization, they have these curios, which are basically loot boxes. They've said that they don't want to put, pay-to-win stuff in here. I think my apprehension is that they're saying that there's going to be, time savers. We don't know how much those are going to cost, and how much they're going to affect progression as a whole. So, I'm not really sure what that's going to mean. It could mean, if you spend $10 and your friends don't spend $10, you progress way faster than them. I'm not really sure what to expect there, but so far, it's just cosmetics and these things, which are basically useless. If you keep playing the game, you'll get way more than this. Right now, you cannot spend money on anything, obviously, but this is what they've got so far. A lot of people haven't really liked the character designs, so I don't know how much banking on cosmetics is going to work. Hopefully it won't be like Avengers, where they promised to have no pay-to-win stuff, and then they added experience boosters. I guess we'll see what happens. Alright, so let's do a quick instance so you guys can get a little bit of the gameplay with all the mechanics explained. One thing that's strange about this game is that these tiles here are randomly generated, and then if I go up here, we'll see Snaggleshire here. This is a venture. Ventures are also partially randomly generated, but they have a set boss at the end, and they also drop, an actual loot table, whereas these don't. The problem is that if you go through too many of these on a maxed out character, it's very hard to level up another class. Like if you look at the classes here, I played a little bit as the martial artist, but I don't really like his moveset. It's kind of slow and not stylish. But I played as him a little bit, and everything has a level requirement in this game. So definitely if you pick this up, you don't want to go through more discovery tiles than you need, because you want to be able to use these for your other characters. Now, the Sentinel is a class that you start out with, but the problem with the Sentinel class is that it's based around parries, but there's no animation cancels on the parries, so it doesn't really give you much of a reward for doing it. However, they have said that they're going to look at that, so once there's a patch, I'll definitely check out the game again, and I'll let you guys know. So let's go ahead and do a tile over here. Okay, so you have something called Danger Level. Danger Level increases a number of things, not including just stats. So their stats will increase. The monster spawns will increase, meaning that there will be different types of monsters, harder monsters. Some of the random events will get harder. And then, of course, you get better rewards. So we're going to go ahead and do Danger Level 4. You can see my recommended gear score for this is 204. If you look in the upper left-hand corner and match the symbols, I've got 341. thing about this game, though, is that since these levels are random, sometimes you get ones that are like borderline impossible, or they're like really strangely difficult, and then other ones are very easy. See that damage from the afflictions is really coming in handy. As you can see, crowd control is still an important part of this game, despite having all the gear and the super moves and stuff. I definitely think they nailed the fundamentals for the most part, but playing solo is kind of disproportionately difficult. I'd say one of the problems with this game is when you start out, this game, like, gaslights you into thinking it only has, like, 2 enemy types, but as you progress in the danger levels, you actually get a lot more enemies, and they're not just palette swaps either, they're actually, like, whole new enemy types. So one of the feedback things that they've been getting, or suggestions that they've been getting, is to increase the enemy variety when you're starting out, so that people don't think this is, like, you know, some Tales games, there's only like a couple enemies that are just palette swapped over and over. There's actually a lot of enemy variety in this game, but you gotta put a couple hours into the game to get it, and I think that fighting the same enemy over and over might not be the best thing for them to do, just because it paints a false first impression of the game. This is a pretty rough map here. Might die. That's alright. Put up some good gameplay yesterday. There's also, like, no healing whatsoever, so, there's heal on hit, like lifesteal, but it's not enough to really make a difference on the harder difficulty. There we go. Died from poison. Nice. Well, there you go. Still a no-miss clear. That's how quick you can destroy bosses if you have a good build. Alright, let's see what the drops are. Oh, so I got an aspect. Let's go check that out. Let's check out that aspect. 13% chance to inflict 2 stacks of bleed. Huh. You go bleed and fire. Let's try that out really quick. While I got the video on. Which one is it again? What I have here is basically 2 status effects for 1, so I'm just going to leave it like that. But yeah, that's my overview of Towerborne. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I did pay for the Silver Founders Pack, which was $25, so as they update the game, I'll definitely let you guys know. But honestly, I'm kind of at the point where I'm not sure how much farther I want to go, because it's going to be improving the game a lot, and then they are going to be wiping, so it's definitely not the kind of game you want to put like 80 hours into early access. You know, it's got enough content to rival Hades 2, but you know, Hades 2 is not going to be doing a full progress wipe. So you'll definitely have to keep that in mind, especially if you've got limited time and funds to play games. But I do think this game is really solid, and if they keep listening to feedback, if they're receptive to feedback, I definitely think this game could even top DFO, because the base mechanics are a lot better than that game. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching, everybody.